What if I told you that deep in the wilderness of Montana, a wolf pack adopted a baby horse? This incredible story of unlikely companionship would change everything we thought we knew about predators and prey. The rugged mountains of Montana carried a silence that only the wilderness could hold. Snowmelt from the peaks fed icy rivers and in the valley below. Wildlife photographer Ethan Ward had been tracking a well-known wolf pack for an upcoming feature with National Geographic. He had already documented countless hunts, pack rituals, and territorial patrols. But what he was about to witness would change the way science viewed wolves forever. The Shadow Creek Pack, as researchers called them, was led by a formidable alpha female named Naira, known for her intelligence and ruthlessness during hunts. Naira commanded respect both from her pack and from those who studied her. For 3 days, Ethan had shadowed their movements, studying how they coordinated their chases with near-military precision. But everything changed after a sudden spring blizzard swept across the wilderness. Animals scattered, herds broke apart, survival became chaos. That was when Ethan spotted a 3-week-old wild Mustang foal, struggling alone in the deep snow. The foal had been separated from his herd during the storm. He was striking chestnut-colored, with a white blaze running down his face. But his inexperience was clear in every trembling step. He cried out in high-pitched whinnies that echoed into the valley, desperate for his mother. Ethan knew the truth: such young foals rarely survived alone. Without milk, without protection, his chances were slim. And then Ethan saw movement through his lens. The wolves were closing in. Naira led her pack with calculated grace. 5 wolves fanned out in a crescent shape, cutting off the foal's escape. To his back raged the current of a swollen river, too cold and swift for survival. To his sides, canyon walls offered no passage. The foal, cornered and trembling, pressed himself against the water's edge. His frightened calls carried through the valley, unanswered. Ethan held his camera steady, torn between his duty as a documentarian and his human instinct to intervene. He knew this was the brutal balance of the wild predators and prey locked in a cycle older than history. Naira crouched low, her muscles tensed, eyes locked on the colt. The moment of truth had arrived, but then everything shifted. Just feet from her target, Naira froze. The foal's desperate cries pierced the silence, echoing too closely to something she had lost weeks earlier. Naira had recently lost her entire litter of pups in a late winter freeze. The foal's cries, shrill, desperate, filled with innocence, awakened a memory buried deep in her. Instead of leaping, Naira tilted her head, ears pricked forward. The pack hesitated. The colt trembled, expecting the strike, but none came. Naira moved closer slowly. She positioned herself between the foal and her own wolves, letting out a low, commanding growl. The pack members, confused, held back. This was no ordinary hunt. Ethan's heart pounded as he filmed. He knew he was witnessing something unprecedented. The foal, still shaking, pressed himself to the riverbank, eyes wide with terror. Yet Naira's body language had changed. She wasn't hunting, she was guarding. For the next several minutes, tension crackled in the cold air. The pack circled restlessly, their instincts urging them to finish the hunt. But Naira's authority was absolute. None dared challenge her. Then, in a moment that stunned Ethan to his core, Naira approached the foal with the same gentleness she would have shown her own pups. She licked his muzzle softly, a gesture of reassurance. Ethan whispered to himself, "This isn't possible." From that moment forward, everything changed. Naira claimed the foal, whom Ethan later nicknamed Phoenix, as her own. Against every law of predator and prey, she became his guardian. Over the following days, Ethan documented the extraordinary relationship. Naira led Phoenix away from the river to safer ground. She groomed him, kept him close, and drove away curious pack members. When they pressed too near, astonishingly, the rest of the wolves adapted. Though confused at first, they eventually accepted Phoenix as part of their group. Of course, Phoenix couldn't eat meat like the wolves. When Naira regurgitated food, the foal sniffed it but turned away. Yet she seemed to understand, leading him to patches of grass and tender shoots while the pack hunted. Ethan realized he was watching cross-species maternal behavior never before seen in the wild. Dr. Clara Reynolds, a wolf behavior specialist who had been studying the Shadow Creek pack for years, arrived at Ethan's camp after hearing of the event. Reviewing his footage, She shook her head in disbelief. "Naira has adopted him," Clara said softly. "This is beyond instinct. This is choice." For weeks, Naira protected Phoenix like her own pup. At night, she curled her body around him against the mountain cold. When coyotes prowled near, the pack formed a wall around the foal. Slowly, Phoenix grew stronger. He began to mimic the wolves, learning their signals, responding to warning growls, even staying in formation when they moved. Ethan's photographs captured moments that would become legendary. A wolf and a foal resting side by side beneath pine shadows, their bond as real as any mother and child. But Ethan and Clara both knew this could not last forever. Phoenix was growing quickly. His instincts as a horse were beginning to surface, his calls deeper, his legs stronger, his need for his herd undeniable. The wolves tolerated him, but his behavior sometimes disrupted their hunts. And then came the day of reckoning. One morning, as dawn lit the valley, the distant thunder of hooves echoed across the land. Ethan raised his lens and froze. A herd of mustangs was approaching, led by a powerful stallion, and among them a bay mare with distinctive markings identical to Phoenix's. His mother, Phoenix's reaction was immediate. He lifted his head, ears straining, and let out a deep, urgent whinny. The mare answered. Naira stood motionless, her yellow eyes fixed on the reunion about to unfold. Phoenix moved toward the herd, torn between two families. The mare approached cautiously, calling again. And then, to Ethan's astonishment, Naira stepped forward. The alpha wolf lowered her head, body language calm, almost submissive. She nudged Phoenix gently toward his mother. It was a gesture as clear as words. "He belongs with you." The mare whinnied sharply, rushing forward to claim her foal. Phoenix pressed against her, nuzzling with desperate affection. But before he left, he turned back, brushing his muzzle against Naira in what looked like a final farewell. Ethan captured the moment, the wolf mother releasing the foal she had saved. Months later, Phoenix thrived within his herd, now a strong young stallion. Rangers reported that he displayed unusual alertness. Instincts sharper than other foals, likely lessons carried from his time among wolves. Naira too went on to raise her next litter of pups. Ethan, still tracking her, noted that her maternal care was stronger than ever, as if protecting Phoenix had deepened her instincts rather than diminished them. The story spread worldwide. Ethan's documentary, The Wolf Who Chose Mercy, won international awards and reshaped public perception of wolves. Scientists debated the implications of Naira's choice, acknowledging that predators may hold emotional depth and intelligence far beyond what was previously understood. Conservation programs began using the story to teach children about compassion in nature. If a wolf can choose mercy, Clara told one audience, then perhaps humans can, too. And in the wild heart of Montana, Naira's legend lived on, a reminder that sometimes, even in nature's harshest moments, compassion triumphs over instinct.